Grown men gaming.
Nice roll. Hello and welcome to a Grown Man Gaming time lapse of a 9-player game of Eclipse that we did last week. Anytime you can get 9 grown men together to play a 5.5-hour game, it's probably worth a little video. We played with the Rise of the Ancients expansion here. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't know what Eclipse is, you still won't at the end of this, because this is not a review, it's not a tutorial on Eclipse. It's just wanted to share my experience with the expansion, with all the options turned on and some of the thoughts. Just kind of fun. So some basic stats. To set this up, I needed 3 tables, 9 chairs. We went through 4 or 5 bags of chips. We ate a pound of candy. I think some other stats. Maybe that's about it. We had 2 players that hadn't played before. Everyone else had played at least a couple of times. This is our second time. Sorry about that. This is our second time with the expansion. Last time we played, we had 8 players. It went pretty well both times. Starting to see some warts this time. Maybe it's because people were able to exploit some of the problems, but the way things just fell out maybe wasn't quite as smooth as I would like. We turned on all the options. So we had the dreadnought in the middle of the board, which actually really gummed up the middle of the board. In the 9-player game, you're really tight to your neighbor. You don't have a lot of room to expand, and if you get stuck between 2 neighbors and you can't get through the middle, then really there's only two other players you're ever going to get in touch with. I think another time I might stick with the normal GCDS in the middle, just to allow a little more interaction between players a little earlier. As you'll see in the time lapse, a lot of the interaction didn't start happening until turn 8 and turn 9, which is a bit par for the course for Eclipse, but I like to see a little more of that going on. We used the alliances feature. That was nice. You can have up to 3 alliances, gets you some extra victory points at the end, and everyone in the alliance shares in the win. So there's just a score for the alliance. That's a great thing. You can bring in new players. Weaker players can join up with stronger players. For the stronger player, it's kind of nice. You don't have to worry about this person coming in and messing up your plans. For the weaker player, you can just sort of tag on to winning ship. But there are some flaws with it. So this game, I could see by turn 3 who was going to win. And one of the big reasons they were going to win was because they were pulling out into a lead, and I knew that people beside them would just ally with them, wouldn't have any incentive to attack them, and there was really no one else that could reach them. So I don't know, another time I think I might not play with alliances if everybody was an experienced player, but once again, it's great to bring along new people. They don't get wiped out as quick, and they have more fun, and that's what it's about. Speaking of fun, everyone had fun. Game took 5.5 hours. We had no idea at the end. I thought it maybe playing for 3-4 hours tops. So everyone was fully engaged right up to the very end of the game, even though some of us were getting pushed into the corners a little bit. So we've got the time lapse. We're going to go through that while you're watching the time lapse. Some things to keep an eye on. Well, one thing you can't see, unfortunately, is the technology tracks. So we've got Hydron on the far side of the board. Top of the board, you'll see, is developing like crazy. This is one of the features of the 9-player game. You can have 2 players going at the same time, so there's 2 sort of next player tokens. One's the pink one, and one's a gray one. The pink one, if you have that, when you get to take an action, and you can take any action you like, including the research action. If you have the gray one, you can take any action you like except the research action. So these things are going around the board. You only get a chance to research every other time. Getting access to that pink action marker is pretty important. And what happened in this game, it was always people on the top of the board that were passing first, partly because, well, mostly because they didn't have a lot of actions to take, and they're just passing early. I was playing Eridani at the start of the game. I have to take advantage of my extra money to take extra action, so I couldn't pass early. And this meant that I never got grabs at any good technology. It was always people on the far end of the board that were getting the best technology. So that had a big impact on the game, which was compounded a little bit because the person that actually got to choose their race first also went first, which is the opposite of what's supposed to happen. I was last to the board because I was letting people in the front door, and I should have gone first according to the rules, but as a host I kind of thought, well, I'll let someone else go first. But yeah, I think it kind of bit me by the end of the game. What else is there to say about this? Oh yeah, so we had one addition they have in the Rise of the Ancients, because the board, there's no more hexes, there, and it's hard to get across, to get to people that aren't beside you. They fixed that problem a little bit by adding warp portals on a few of the hexes. I think there's 4 hexes that have warp portals. And these allow hexes that are on the opposite side of the board to just be connected to each other. There's also technology you can research that you can plop on one of those hexes, which will allow you to have your own warp portal if you didn't happen to pull one during your exploration phase. This game, 3 of the 4 hexes went to the same player. Sorry, 3 of the 4 warp portals went to the same player, which meant it really didn't have much of an impact on the game. There wasn't a lot of, it didn't open up the board the way it should have, and the board was a little too closed off, so that was unfortunate. The other thing that happened in this game is, with the Rise of the Ancients, obviously you have nastier ancients. And there's ancient dreadnoughts, and there's sectors that have ancient dreadnoughts, and then there's also sectors that have ancient hives, and we had both of those in. One of the players on the top of the board got stuck behind 2 hives and an ancient dreadnought. They just kept drawing these nasty, nasty ancients, and right until, like, it wasn't until near the end of the game that they were able to even take those things on. So that was also an unfortunate thing that happened. I don't think either of these things are going to happen very often, so I don't see a flaw in the game, but it made this particular game just a little bit odd. Trying to think what else I should mention before we go into it. I just want to reiterate, it definitely was a lot of fun. All the mechanics worked well. There were a couple oddities, but it's a good game. So let's go into the time lapse.